The massive crystal halls of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual morning chatter. Representatives from 847 different species filled their assigned seats, preparing for another day of diplomatic discussions. But something felt wrong. Ambassador Kevara of the Zilani adjusted her 4 eyes and looked toward the human section. The elegant blue and silver seats that had been occupied every single day for 200 years stood empty. Not a single human was present. "Where are they?" whispered Counselor Torvin, his scaled head turning nervously. His gills fluttered with anxiety as he searched the chamber. Elder THYSS, the oldest member of the council at over 1,000 years, slowly rose from her meditation position. Her ancient mind reached out through the quantum communication networks that connected the galaxy. What she found made her crystalline skin turn pale. "I sense nothing from human space," she announced, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. Complete communication blackout. In the Human Embassy District, Trade Minister Veltar stood before the sealed doors of Earth's diplomatic building. The warm golden lights that had welcomed visitors for decades were now dark. Security barriers hummed with power, keeping everyone away. Only one message played on repeat from the building's communication system. The voice was calm and professional, speaking perfect galactic standard. The Human Federation is ending all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council effective immediately. All treaties, trade agreements, and partnerships are canceled. Do not attempt to make contact. This message will not repeat. Back in the main assembly hall, panic began to spread like wildfire. War Marshal Gextor of the Corvin Empire slammed his armored fist on his table, making the metal ring loudly. "This is impossible," he roared. "Humans cannot simply abandon their duties. They have obligations." But reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Human trade stations that processed millions of tons of cargo daily had gone silent. Their communication arrays were offline. Security guards reported that human staff had simply vanished overnight, leaving behind only automated systems. Captain Zindera of the patrol fleet received an urgent message on her personal communicator. "Captain, the human peacekeeping ships are moving. All of them. They're heading back toward human space." The news hit the council like a physical blow. The human peacekeeping fleet was the largest and most advanced military force in the galaxy. They maintained order in over 300 star systems, stopped pirates, prevented wars, and rescued ships in distress. Now they were leaving their posts and returning home. "But why?" demanded President Quindal of the Merchant Alliance. His tentacles writhed with confusion. What could make them do this? Elder THYSS closed her ancient eyes and searched her memories. In all her centuries of life, through wars, plagues, and cosmic disasters, she had never seen anything like this. Humans didn't act without reason. They were logical, careful, and deeply committed to helping others. This sudden withdrawal made no sense. Communications Officer Lineth tried desperately to reach Earth through the quantum networks. Every channel she accessed gave the same result. Automated responses only. No human voices answered. No human ships responded to hails. It was as if an entire species had simply decided to stop talking to the rest of the galaxy. "Try the emergency channels," ordered Council Speaker Morgen. His 6 arms gestured frantically as he paced back and forth. "Use the direct lines to Earth government." Linetha's fingers danced over a control panel. "All emergency channels are blocked, sir. The humans have cut every single communication link between their space and ours." The reality began to sink in. Humans handled 30% of all galactic trade. Their banks processed a majority of interspecies financial transactions. Their translators made communication between different species possible. Their mediators had prevented countless wars by helping species resolve their differences peacefully. More reports arrived every few minutes. Human cargo ships were abandoning their routes mid-journey, their automated systems piloting them back to human colonies. Human scientists were leaving joint research projects. Human teachers were departing alien schools. Human doctors were closing their clinics on non-human worlds. "It's not just diplomacy," whispered trade analyst Kexmar, staring at his data screens in horror. "They're pulling out of everything. Every single human activity outside their own territory is being shut down. The most disturbing part was how organized it all seemed. This wasn't panic or anger. This was a planned, systematic withdrawal that had been prepared in advance. Every human in the galaxy was following the same script, moving with the same purpose. Elder THYSS stood again, her ancient voice cutting through chaos. "We must understand what this means," she said slowly. "The humans have not declared war on us. They have done something much more frightening. They have declared that we no longer exist to them." The great chamber fell silent, where they could understand and fight. Economic problems could be solved with time and effort, but complete indifference? Total abandonment? This was something entirely new and terrifying. As the day ended and the council members returned to their quarters, one fact became clear. The galaxy had just lost the species that held it together, and nobody knew why. 3 months had passed since the humans disappeared from galactic society, and Captain Zexhai was learning a painful lesson. His massive Corvin battlecruiser hung powerless in space near what used to be the human trade station at Kepler's Gate. The station was dark and empty, but that wasn't his biggest problem. "Sir, our weapons are completely dead," reported his tactical officer, fear creeping into his voice. "All combat systems show green on diagnostics, but nothing works when we try to fire." This was the 4th Corvin fleet to experience the same mysterious failure. Every time they tried to take control of abandoned human territories, their military systems would simply stop functioning. No damage, no explosions, no warning messages. The weapons just refused to work. Zexhai slammed his clawed hand against his command chair. "Run full diagnostics again. There has to be an explanation." But there wasn't. The Corvin Empire's greatest warships had been reduced to floating metal boxes whenever they showed aggressive intent in former human space. Other species reported similar problems. The militant Thrax Confederacy had lost 6 fleets to the same phenomenon. Even pirates found their weapons failing when they approached human abandoned stations. Meanwhile, on the trading world of Vegan's Rest, Merchant Prince Quindal stared at his profit reports with growing horror. The numbers painted a picture of galactic economic collapse. 60% drop in trade volume across all sectors. His aide reported nervously. "Sir, we're facing complete financial ruin." The humans hadn't just been traders. They had been the invisible backbone of the galactic economy. Their cargo ships had connected distant worlds that couldn't communicate directly. Their banks had provided stable currency exchange between hundreds of different monetary systems. Their logistics networks had made sure that food, medicine, and raw materials reached the planets that needed them. Now those connections were broken. Worlds that had depended on human-coordinated supply chains were running out of essential goods. The ice miners of Frozen Station needed food shipments that no longer came. The agricultural world of Green Valley had warehouses full of grain, but no way to transport to hungry planets. Dr. Melandra, the galaxy's leading economist, published a report that sent shockwaves through every government. "The human withdrawal has created a cascade failure," she wrote. "They weren't just participants in our economy. They were the central nervous system that made it function." But the economic disaster was only part of the problem. In the Outer Rim territories, where human peacekeepers had maintained order for decades, chaos was spreading like wildfire. Commander Veltar of the Rim Patrol received another distress call, the 15th that day. "Pirates have attacked the medical convoy to Sanctuary Station," came the desperate transmission. "They took everything. Our people are dying without those supplies." The human peacekeeping fleets had been more than just military forces. They had been the galaxy's police, rescue service, and disaster response team all in one. Their ships had stopped pirate attacks, rescued stranded vessels, and delivered aid to planets hit by natural disasters. Now they were gone, and predators were emerging from every dark corner of space. Pirate attacks had increased by 300%. Small wars that human mediators had prevented were now breaking out across the galaxy. The Zolani Commonwealth and the Aquatic Union had started fighting over mining rights, a dispute that would have been resolved in hours with human help. Now it was becoming a full-scale war. Elder THYSS convened emergency meetings with the remaining council leadership, but their discussions only revealed more problems. The communication networks are failing, reported technical specialist Lynn F. Humans provided translation services for over 200 languages. Without them, half our species can't understand each other. The medical exchange programs have collapsed. Added doctors or gone. Human doctors were treating diseases that local physicians couldn't handle. We're seeing plague outbreaks on 12 different worlds. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery came from the intelligence services. Agent Crixon AL had been monitoring human communications, hoping to understand their motivations. What he found was worse than anger or hatred. "They're not talking about us at all," he reported to the secret council session. Human news broadcasts don't mention galactic affairs. Their educational systems have stopped teaching about other species. Their entertainment shows only feature human characters and human worlds. Elder THYSS felt a chill run through her ancient bones. "You're saying they've forgotten us?" "Worse," Crixonell replied. "They've decided we don't matter. Their entire civilization has turned inward. To them, we simply don't exist anymore." This realization struck the assembled leaders like a physical blow. They had expected anger, demands, negotiation attempts, or even declarations of war. Those were things they could understand and respond to. But complete psychological abandonment? The humans had done something no species had ever done before. They had declared the rest of the galaxy irrelevant to their existence. War could be fought. Economic problems could be solved. Diplomatic disputes could be resolved. But how do you fight against a species that has decided you no longer exist? How do you negotiate with people who have stopped caring about you entirely? As reports continue to pour in of collapsing trade routes, spreading conflicts, and failing infrastructure, one truth became clear. The galaxy needed humanity far more than humanity needed the galaxy, and humanity had just proven it in the most devastating way possible. Ambassador Gene Ho sat in his comfortable office aboard the human space station Soul's Light, sipping his morning coffee while reading the latest intelligence reports. The large screens on his walls showed chaos spreading across the galaxy like a disease. Trade routes collapsing, wars breaking out, entire civilizations begging for help that would never come. "Sir, another diplomatic mission is approaching our borders," reported communications officer Naun from her station. "This one has ships from 12 different species." Jinho didn't even look up from his reports. Standard response: turn them away. This was the 8th major diplomatic mission in 6 months, each one more desperate than the last. The galaxy's leaders were finally beginning to understand what humanity's withdrawal really meant. But understanding came too late. On Earth, President So-young was addressing the Global Assembly in Seoul. The massive hall was filled with human representatives from every colony and space station in human territory. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice calm and confident, "today marks 18 months since we ended our involvement in galactic affairs. Our decision has proven to be the correct one. The evidence was overwhelming. Secret documents recovered by intelligence officer Minwoo had revealed 40 years of systematic betrayal. The Galactic Council had been working behind closed doors to limit human influence, viewing humanity's rapid success as a threat to their established order. Minwoo stood at his podium in the intelligence briefing room, presenting his findings to senior officials. "The Council passed Resolution 847 Alpha in secret," he explained, pointing to classified documents on the wall screen. "This resolution gradually reduced human voting power and excluded us from major decisions. The betrayal went deeper than political manipulation. Human peace negotiations had been sabotaged deliberately. Propaganda campaigns had spread lies about human aggressive expansion to other species. Trade agreements had been secretly modified to disadvantage human businesses. They used our own goodwill against us," Minwoo continued. "Every time we helped resolve a crisis, every time we shared our technology, every time we mediated a dispute, they saw it as proof that we were becoming too powerful." Captain Dongmin of the survey vessel Busan Explorer was monitoring the border between human and alien space. His sensors showed another alien fleet approaching, this one flying the colors of the desperate Zalani Commonwealth. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "they're broadcasting on all frequencies, begging for a meeting with any human official. Log it and ignore it, Dongmin replied calmly. Same as the others. The border between human and non-human space had become like a wall of glass. The aliens could see humanity continuing to thrive and grow, but they couldn't reach them. Every attempt to cross into human territory was turned back by invisible barriers that somehow disabled their ships without causing damage. What the aliens didn't understand was that humanity's withdrawal hadn't been an emotional reaction. It had been planned and prepared for over 20 years. Once the intelligence services had discovered the Council's secret activities, human leadership had quietly begun designing a completely independent civilization. Security Chief Young-Soo reviewed the monitoring reports from his command center on Luna. They're getting more creative, he noted with amusement. The Corvan Empire tried to send a trade mission disguised as refugees. The Nexery Collective offered to share their hive mind technology in exchange for renewed contact. The most desperate attempt had come from the ancient Velos species. Elder THYSS herself had arrived at the human border in a simple shuttle, without weapons or escorts, broadcasting a personal message of apology and requesting a single conversation. She had been turned away like all the others. Sir, we're intercepting increased communication traffic, reported intelligence analyst Yi Jin. They're monitoring our civilian broadcasts, looking for any mention of galactic affairs or foreign policy. What they found was perhaps more disturbing than any declaration of war. Human news programs no longer reported on galactic events. Human schools had stopped teaching about alien species. Human entertainment featured only human characters in human settings. Children were growing up learning about Earth's history and human colonies, but the existence of other intelligent species was simply absent from their education. The galaxy had become irrelevant to human civilization. This wasn't hatred or anger. This was complete indifference, and it terrified the alien species more than any threat ever could. Dr. Hygiene, Earth's leading xenopsychologist, published a report that explained humanity's psychological approach. We have demonstrated something unique in galactic history, she wrote. The ability to completely disconnect from a toxic relationship, regardless of past investment or emotional attachment. Other species couldn't understand this concept. They were trapped by their need for galactic validation and connection. They couldn't imagine simply walking away from centuries of established relationships. But humans had done exactly that. Meanwhile, human civilization was thriving in isolation. Trade between human colonies had increased dramatically. Scientific research was advancing faster without the need to share discoveries with ungrateful alien species. Cultural development was flourishing as humans focused on their own societies and values. Ambassador Jinho finished his coffee and looked out at the stars beyond human space. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were collapsing, wars were spreading, and desperate leaders were begging for help that would never come. He felt no satisfaction in their suffering, but he also felt no obligation to help them. They had made their choice 40 years ago when they decided to betray humanity's trust. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice. Admiral Jun Ji stood in the command center of the defense station Incheon Shield, watching his sensors track the largest fleet in galactic history. 800 alien ships from dozens of species had gathered at the edge of human space, their combined mass creating a shadow against the stars. Sir, the Council fleet has reached our border, reported Tactical Officer Eugene, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were seeing. They're requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Jun Ji didn't hesitate. Standard response. Access denied. But this time, something different happened. The massive alien fleet didn't turn around and leave like all the others. Instead, they began moving forward, crossing into human territory without permission. For the first time in 2 years, alien ships were violating human space. Sir, they've crossed the line, Eugene announced. Multiple violations of our territorial boundary. A small smile crossed Jun Ji's face. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. The aliens had finally made the mistake he knew they would make eventually. Desperation had driven them to break the one rule that humanity had made absolutely clear. The human patrol ship Tegu's Pride moved to intercept the massive alien armada. The small vessel, with its crew of only 12 people, looked like a tiny insect flying toward a swarm of giants. On paper, it was completely outmatched. In reality, the aliens were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. On the dying world of Nexus Prime, the few remaining council members watched the confrontation through long-range sensors. The once mighty chamber that had housed representatives from 800 species now held fewer than 50. Most civilizations had collapsed during the 2 years of human absence. Elder THYSS, now ancient beyond measure, stared at the screens with desperate hope. "This has to work," she whispered to herself. "The galaxy cannot survive much longer." The statistics were horrifying. The Corvin Empire had broken apart into warring factions. The Commerce Guild had declared complete bankruptcy. 17 entire species had gone extinct as their trade-dependent societies crumbled. Wars raged across 50 star systems, without human peacekeepers to maintain order. Captain Min Jun of the Tegu's Pride opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His voice was calm and professional, the same tone that human diplomats had once used to resolve galactic crises. "This is Captain Omin Jun of the Human Patrol Service," he announced. "You have entered human space without authorization. You have 30 seconds to explain why we should care about your problems before we escort you back to your territory." The words hit the alien fleet like a physical blow. The casual indifference in the human's voice was more terrifying than any threat or show of force. He wasn't angry or hostile. He simply didn't care about their desperate situation. Elder THYSS took control of the communication system herself. Her ancient voice, which had commanded respect for over 1,000 years, now trembled with desperation. "Captain, please," she began. "We need to discuss restoring diplomatic relations. The galaxy is dying without human participation. Entire civilizations have collapsed. Billions of beings are suffering." 20 seconds, Min Jun replied, his tone unchanged. THYSS felt panic rising in her chest. 1,000 years of diplomatic training hadn't prepared her for this level of complete indifference. "We acknowledge our mistakes. We know about the secret resolutions, the sabotage, the propaganda campaigns. We're prepared to offer any terms, any concessions you require." 10 seconds. "Please," THYSS begged, her dignity crumbling after centuries of pride. "We can dissolve the entire council, rebuild everything according to human preferences, give humanity complete control over galactic affairs." "Time's up." The small human ship activated its tractor beam, and something impossible happened. The massive alien fleet, with its hundreds of warships and millions of tons of metal, began moving backward. Their weapons wouldn't function. Their engines were overridden. Their communication systems were jammed. The aliens found themselves being gently but irresistibly pushed back toward the border by a single human patrol ship. Every attempt to resist failed. Their most advanced technology was useless against whatever systems the humans were using. As the fleet crossed back into non-human space, one final transmission reached them from a human ship. "Next time, make an appointment." The communication cut off, leaving 800 alien ships floating helplessly in the void, their crews staring in shock at what had just happened. The most powerful military alliance in galactic history had been dismissed by a single human patrol boat like a minor inconvenience. Back on Nexus Prime, the surviving council members sat in stunned silence. They had thrown everything they had at humanity's borders, and it had been brushed aside without effort. "How?" whispered War Marshal Kexton of what remained of the Corvin Empire. "How are they so powerful?" Elder THYSS understood now. The humans hadn't just withdrawn from galactic society. They had spent 2 years preparing for this exact moment. Every system, every defense, every response had been planned and tested. Humanity wasn't just ignoring the galaxy. They were demonstrating their complete superiority over it. The breaking point had been reached. The galaxy's leaders finally understood that they weren't dealing with equals who could be negotiated with or pressured. They were dealing with a species that had moved so far beyond their level that human attention had become a privilege to be earned, not a right to be demanded. The age of galactic civilization, as they knew it was over, whatever came next would be entirely on humanity's terms. President So Young stood before the rebuilt Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from 200 species. The massive chamber that once held delegates from 800 civilizations now seemed half empty, a stark reminder how many had simply ceased to exist during humanity's 3-year absence. Elder THYSS, now serving as speaker for what was called a Reformed Galactic Assembly, rose slowly from her position. Her ancient form moved with difficulty, aged beyond measure by the stress of watching civilizations collapse. By unanimous vote of all surviving galactic civilizations, she announced, her voice carrying across the silent hall, we formally adopt a human charter of rights and responsibilities. The terms have been presented as non-negotiable. Any species wishing to participate in the new galactic order would completely restructure their society according to human principles. Individual rights would be protected above all else. Governments would rule only with the consent of their people. Leadership positions would be earned through merit, not birth or force. Most importantly, absolute transparency would govern all interspecies relations. Ambassador Jinho, now Earth's primary representative, stepped forward to address the assembly. His words were measured and calm, but they carried the weight of absolute authority. For centuries, you believed galactic civilization needed the galaxy, he said, looking directly at the alien delegates. You were wrong. Galactic civilization needed humanity. The proof was overwhelming. During humanity's withdrawal, the old galaxy had lost more than half its member species. Wars had consumed entire star systems. Trade networks had collapsed completely. Millions of worlds had fallen into chaos without human peacekeepers to maintain order. But the surviving species that had embraced human guidance were now thriving beyond their wildest dreams. Captain Dongmin delivered his report from the frontier territories. 47 species have requested full membership in the Human Cooperative, he announced. They restructured their entire governments around individual rights and consensual democracy. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. The Zilani Commonwealth, once ruled by hereditary crystal castes, had become a representative democracy where every citizen had an equal voice. The militant Corvan Empire had disbanded their warrior nobility and elected civilian leaders for the first time in their history. Intelligence Officer Minwoo presented the most striking statistics. Trade volume under the new system has increased by 150% compared to pre-withdrawal levels. Military conflicts have decreased by 98%. Technological advancement is proceeding at unprecedented rates. The success came from humanity's approach to cooperation. Instead of the old system where species competed and schemed against each other, the human cooperative fostered genuine partnership. Knowledge was shared freely. Resources were distributed based on need rather than political power. Conflict were resolved through mediation rather than force. Security Chief Young Soo provided the final assessment from his monitoring stations. Complete integration has been achieved with all member species. They've demonstrated genuine commitment to cooperative principles rather than surface compliance. But the most significant change was philosophical. The old Galactic Council had been built on the assumption that different species would naturally compete and conflict with each other. Humanity had proven that cooperation was not only possible, but far more effective than competition. Dr. Hygiene published her analysis of the transformation. Humanity demonstrated something that no other species believed possible, she wrote. Complete psychological independence from toxic relationships, combined with the strength to rebuild from scratch. The galaxy had learned that humanity possessed a unique characteristic. They were willing to walk away from anything that didn't align with their values, no matter how much time, energy, or emotion they had invested. Other species couldn't understand this concept because they were trapped by their need for external validation and their fear of isolation. President So-young concluded her address to the Assembly with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The old galaxy made the mistake of believing they could use our compassion against us. They assumed we would never abandon our responsibilities, never turn our backs on galactic civilization, never stop caring about others' problems. She paused, looking out at the alien representatives who hung on her every word. They were wrong. We have something that no other species possesses: the psychological strength to stop caring about those who don't respect us. We can walk away from anything that doesn't serve our principles, regardless of past investment or emotional attachment. The silence in the chamber was complete. Every alien delegate understood the lesson that it cost hundreds of civilizations their existence. Ambassador Jin Ho delivered the final message. The galaxy survived, but it's now humanity's galaxy. Every species present today earned their place by proving they deserved our attention and cooperation. The transformation was complete. The old system of political manipulation, secret schemes, and competitive backstabbing had been replaced by transparent cooperation, guided by human values. Species that couldn't adapt to the new paradigm had simply ceased to exist. Humanity had taught the galaxy the most powerful lesson in diplomatic history. Sometimes the strongest response to betrayal isn't revenge or retaliation. It's complete, devastating indifference. The ability to simply stop caring about those who have proven themselves unworthy of care. The galaxy had gambled that humanity would never abandon them, no matter how badly they were treated. They had lost that gamble, and the price had been the destruction of their entire civilization. What rose from the ashes was better, stronger, and more just, but it existed entirely on humanity's terms, and every surviving species understood that their continued existence depended on earning humanity's respect rather than taking it for granted.